What's up, Slick Talkers? Welcome back to another episode. This episode was specifically recorded at the VRMA Executive Summit in Boca Raton just about 2 weeks ago from the time you're listening to this episode. As you all know, Robin Craigen is a good friend of the podcast. We've had him on multiple times, and of course, he's just an amazing person to get to know and a great entrepreneur, especially in vacation rentals. He's a legend. So in this episode, you're going to hear us talk about a little bit of the VRMA drama, but also how even though you've been in business for 25 years, you still don't always get it right the first time. And the importance of that lesson is it's okay to reiterate over time and to finally, fine tune things as you start to develop a new concept or new business model, restructure, etc. So I think this was a really good lesson overall. I'm really excited for this episode, so I can't wait for you to listen. Make sure you like and subscribe to all things Robin Craigen, Moving Mountains, and of course, the podcast. Please, all of you guys that listen and tune in and send me messages are amazing, and it really helps feed the show, so thank you so much. And we're back to the episode. Let's begin. All right, Robin Craigen. We're here. Good to see you in person, in the flesh.
Yeah, as always.
As always. I don't think we get to podcast together enough. I love that we get to chat with each other, but I'm always excited to get you on the show. So I'm excited because last night at the reception, we're here at the VRMA Executive Summit. You were telling me a little bit more about Moving Mountains because the last time we chatted at your office in Steamboat, which was an amazing trip. You were telling me about moving oceans, moving beaches. Now there's I wouldn't say new development, but it's changed and structured differently now that you guys have gone through that evolution, basically.
Yeah, I think it's an evolution, a pivot, a realization that whilst we still very much have the direction to pursue oceans, beaches, and we're already very successful in the mountains, that part of the reason why we conceived the idea of moving mountains, evolving into moving mountains, moving oceans, moving beaches is just realizing we wanted to add like a different string to our bow. We wanted to offer different experiences to our guests. And that really was our first kind of instinct was, well, it should be, we're moving mountains, we're in the mountains. I think people think that that's somehow part of our name. But as we rolled it out, what we understood is we started telling people about this idea of moving oceans. Even our broker, who's worked for us for years, who's out there saying, I'm representing yachts available to our guests through this new division of our business. There were people asking her, is this connected to moving mountains? Is this part of the same business? Well, if we're having to explain that to people, then that may be a weakness in that brand strategy. And what we also realized is if you talk about moving oceans, in isolation of moving mountains, let's say that you've never heard of moving mountains. Yeah. It's possible that there could be a couple of people left out there for us. So you've never heard of moving mountains, so you're being approached about booking a charter with a company called Moving Oceans. Well, what's moving oceans? What does that name even mean? And it's like, it doesn't mean as much if you don't understand that the concept of moving mountains is about we will move a mountain for our guests. That really is how we conceive that idea. It's the backbone of our philosophy on hospitality. And it's much more about we will move a mountain for you rather than we are in the mountains. It just so happens that we're in the mountains. Yeah. So we realized that the overarching brand, the overarching message we want to send out there is our brand is moving mountains. Our brand is a company committed to unreasonable levels of hospitality, backed by the name Moving Mountains. We will move a mountain for you, but we offer experiences that are in an alpine setting. This is how we've reconsidered the divisions on the oceans. And I think in the future, we're still looking at some options to do beaches. So these taglines, alpine, oceans, beaches, are defining the experience, but the backbone of that is about a hospitality experience. That is our brand, Moving Mountains. That's what we're committed to. So
I love it.
That's the full kind of story about how that's the journey we went on, and we put our hands up and say, we don't get it right first every time. But the important thing is to, when you recognize you've got a challenge, is to say, okay, should we just push on because we've come this far, or should we regroup? And I think we regrouped in a really effective manner. I think the repositioning, the rebranding, the restructuring of that, where we have now a collection, you'll see on our website, it refers to moving mountains. We have an alpine collection, we have oceans. And oceans is our curated collection of 70 yachts.
Wow.
Out of the 3,000 plus yachts that are available in that region in the Caribbean. We are just focused on the British Virgin Islands and the US Virgin Islands for now.
Yeah.
We want to get this thing started. We're 3 bookings into this in our first month.
That's awesome.
Including a booking on our boat that we're currently almost done building, called Endless Summer 3. So you can see Endless Summer 3 is listed on Oceans, that division of Moving Mountains, but it's also Endless Summer 3, it has its own website, endlesssummer3iii.com.
Wow. So the reason why I think I wanted to bring this up specifically, because you said it very perfectly in the sense that we don't get it right the first time. And I think in our space specifically, when people announce things, they get excited. We're all pumped. We're entrepreneurs. We want to create and, wow and change and constantly build something. But then you see it starts to either muddy the waters with your guests. It starts to maybe not have the best messaging.
Like in anything, when you're rolling it out, you're looking for feedback.
Yes.
So you want to make sure that you don't go too far down the road before you recognize if something isn't perfect. And you want to fine tune that. So I see this as the concept is still the same, but we've fine-tuned the way that we position the brand, positioning it more effectively under the existing brand. So,
what's up, Slick Talkers? Sorry to interrupt the episode, but this episode is brought to you by our friends at Minute. And how can we ever go wrong with Minute? You can't. It's just not possible. Minute is the #1 noise detection, smoke detection, and occupancy detection device that goes inside of your homes or your short-term rental properties, whether it's multifamily or single-family homes. They're your eyes and your assistants, your co-hosts. They help with everything. They are an amazing software and amazing tech. We've had the founder, Nils, on the podcast a couple times to talk about their technology and how it's continuing to develop. But did you know that Airbnb has now banned all indoor cameras? Which, if any of my listeners have had indoor cameras in their vacation homes, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? Don't do that. Get Minute. It's 100% privacy safe. So that way it's only measuring noise levels and decibel levels. So decibel levels are really important because it's not recording. It's not like covering conversations and storing it to a database and doing a bunch of weird, sketchy stuff. It's literally just capturing the decibel levels to make sure that your guests have peace of mind when staying at your home. So get with Minute today. Make sure you grab the link in the show notes for a special offer for all of our Slick Talk listeners. And now we're back to the episode. Yeah, I love it. So smart. I'm very, very curious. Is there ever going to be a moving skies division or a space division?
We did Galaxies as an April Fool's joke. And who knows? That could still happen in the future. But I think we're going to keep our feet on planet Earth for the first, probably the next decade.
Okay.
You'll never know.
I don't know. You're not going to join Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk in the space race?
But after those first flights, you don't hear a lot of talk about people flying in space now.
Yeah, I agree. It's risky water.
We're interested in creating something that's sustainable that people will do over and over.
Yeah.
I think the bad news is how many times do you really need to go to space for 10 minutes?
Yeah. Exactly. Especially when it's millions.
It's pricey too.
Millions or, I don't know what the ticket prices are anymore, but millions of dollars. That's very cool. Well, I also want to kind of talk to you about, obviously you said before the recording, the elephant in the room. We're at VRMA Executive Summit. So I want your opinion and take. I think a lot of the listeners, specifically for Slick Talk, understand where I stand with VRMA. But I would love to know your thoughts on, with everything that's happening for listeners, context, board of directors, kind of some drama here. Can you fill us in on what you've heard and what's kind of been in the media through some of the mistrust?
I think most people who follow the industry are probably aware of the changes in leadership.
Yeah.
And then changes on the board. So the governance of the VRMA is going through some changes. And, that's not that's the first time that's ever happened in an association. Change can be challenging. Change can be for the good. I think questions questions have been maybe murmured in the background, and certainly a lot of other questions were raised in a very kind of public and somewhat aggressive manner.
Yeah.
Saying, what is the VRMA doing? We've seen some missteps. VRMA Europe I was there in Paris, and yep, the attendance was not there, and maybe that's like a hard lesson learned is that just didn't work, and money was lost.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know what there's some allegations of mismanagement of finances.
Yeah.
I think that those have now been heard. What we heard this morning, Michelle stood up and addressed.
Michelle Williams.
Yeah, Michelle Williams has stepped in as the chair and will serve till the end of her term. Will be until the end of the Executive Summit. Was saying, we've heard you, and we should have done better, and we are going to respond, and we need to be given time. There was an invitation for a town hall in the future, which I think is an opportunity for maybe those critics to come and voice their concerns in a manner that can be responded to professionally.
Yeah.
I think what's missing from the conversation right now is maybe a little bit more professional level of discourse, recognizing that there are some things that the VRMA has done that are incredibly positive and beneficial to this industry. And I've sat with a number of people at this conference saying, maybe it isn't perfect, but let's not, forget that a lot of us learned a lot of really good things and have really significantly improved our business based on our experiences. There is a reason why we keep coming back to these conferences.
Yeah.
It's not just to drink cocktails late into the night.
Some people it might be.
For some people it might be, but that's not going to sustain me. I can find better ways to spend the kind of money we spend to come and do this. I think the educational value is priceless, and the value of being able to rub shoulders with your equals in the industry, which if you come a few times, you're going to figure out.
Yep.
I figured out who is aligned with the type of business we're running and the kind of things that are of interest to me. There are people that I know who those people are now. It's a very diverse industry. You go to the international, you're going to meet solo managers who only use Airbnb as a booking platform, completely reliant. They put all their eggs in that one basket. You're going to meet people that are doing a blended strategy. You're going to meet people that have been doing this forever and only occasionally rely on OTAs and other booking channels to bring the business. Mm-hmm. So you're going to hear so many different ways that people do things. Over time, what's interesting about the bigger picture is if you can align yourself with your cohort of familiar managers, you guys can synergize. And this is an industry in which people share an incredible amount of information.
Yeah.
It's a very open, collaborative environment. It doesn't feel like to me that the discourse that's going on outside of the VRMA has recognized the positives as much as the challenges. There's a lot of conversation about some things are repetitive and it's the same old, same old. I think, one of the answers that, you have to say is if you don't like it, what are you going to do to help fix it? Because we are an industry together.
Yeah.
And we can be part of the solution or we can be part of the problem.
Yeah.
So my sense in being here is that the conversation is, let's not forget how many good things have come from this and how we need to regroup and take this forwards in a positive direction.
Yeah.
I think that's what people are looking for. I mean, I think it's frustrating to hear things that don't really belong on the airwaves, being thrown around. So that's my sense of where we are right now.
Yeah. I want to ask you, because you're talking about the education, and this is something I've said, I think, pretty publicly on the podcast, is that I do feel like it's the same people on the same stage, on the same topics. Most of the time, there's obviously some changes as, certain regulations or other things happen. AI has obviously become a big thing now. But I would love to know, because every time I hear people talking about submitting their panels or their discussions on VRMA, is that it always gets declined. People never get the opportunity to kind of speak.
And I do think that is being heard as a concern.
Okay.
I'd like to think, I think that if that question isn't being answered effectively, that's the kind of thing should be brought up at the town hall. what do we do to change the content if you're not happy with the content?
Yeah.
How do we push through different ideas? I was involved in the committee that put together the content for this conference. And I thought the presentation this morning from Jason Sprinkle and Jacoby Olin was spot on and something new that I hadn't heard before. So I felt very engaged with that. I think Matt's message was to invite us to think outside the box and to try and approach things with a new direction. And that was given to presenters yesterday in a pre-conference meeting. Is we need to be authentic. We need to think about our audience. We need to deliver content that isn't just the same old, same old. So don't just repeat the same old message.
Yeah.
People have heard that too many times. So yeah, I mean, I think that people are looking for the solutions, and you can always poke holes in other people's work, or you can start to try and kind of help build things up.
Yeah.
I think that there's more of a feeling of let's try and lift this industry up than just try and pull people down. It's just easy to pick on people.
Yeah. I personally want to go to this town hall because I think from my perspective as what we're building with the Hospitality FM is that we want to build a platform that does allow new voices to have a platform, to have a stage, to be heard, to build an audience, to build connections, relationships. Right. And I felt with VRMA in the past, I could say, obviously I'm still Switzerland right now, but in the past, it was definitely not so open to that. And it felt very, the same people, same topics. Literally heard someone talk about it today saying like, oh, I've seen this guy's, presentation 10 times. I could probably do it for him. Right. And it's like, okay, like, that's a kind of a sign. So I am all open for VRMA changing in order to open up that platform, because there's always been, you and I've, privately talked about it a couple times where the Airbnb versus a VRM, sector kind of conversation happens, which it shouldn't be a versus, there's other stuff it should be more open for.
These are themes that are evolving, and I think you can continue to talk about Airbnb and the OTAs and the good and the bad and the ugly of that. There are pluses and minuses, but recognize that Airbnb is rolling out new features and new approaches. Same with Vrbo. There's a great conversation going on in our industry right now about
booking
standards.
Well, standards. Yeah.
So I've been working with Ashley Ching from InHaven, who's leading her own initiative into what are the standards that we should be coalescing around, and then how should we roll that out to the industry to create some higher standards of professionalism. Professionalism is something that it can be a little subjective.
Yeah.
Some of us are doing it to a really high level. Some of us don't even really know where to start. I think everyone has the intention of building a good business, but this is to try and create a more predictable outcome for the guest by actually getting out in front of those standards and saying, this is an expectation. And the hotels kind of lead the way. They've been down this path and they've had explosive growth, and then they've had disappointment when people go stay in a hotel and it's not meeting or exceeding anyone's expectations.
Exactly.
That's not the kind of thing that's going to bring you back. So I think people are slow to realize that, it's still a fragile relationship with the consumer. We're still being discovered by many consumers. And if that experience is not exceptional, that you can have someone who first times it, who says, never again, I'm back to the hotels, because I may not be getting everything I get with a vacation rental, but at least I know what I'm getting. And I know that they will stand by their standards. Mm-hmm. Some of us are doing that really well, and some of us are not. And the ones that are not paying attention to safety, another huge concern that we need to get out in front of, because if we don't address it as an industry, we're going to find it's going to be addressed by the government. They're going to regulate us, and that is going to impact us. Just as we have seen regulations come in and affect where you can rent properties and what you can do with a different property, and how careless managers have affected the rest of us. I think it's the same story with safety. I think it's the same story with standards. We need to be more proactive. We're in way too much of a reactive stance. We get regulated. Oh, now we need to fix it.
Yeah.
it's like we're on the back foot.
Have you heard about our friends at Hostfully? Because they are a great property management platform. And of course, like always, it's super important to have a hub, a home spot, a place to go for all of your properties. Well, Hostfully is that for us at Recreation Vacation Rentals. We use them for all of our homes. And of course, not only do we love the availability to have our team members use it and to connect with our other software providers like Minute, we also love their marketplace and their integrations with OTAs from Airbnb to Booking.com to Vrbo to Expedia, Homes and Villas, you name it. We use it all because it's enwrapped in one software. So get with Hostfully today, like and subscribe, grab the link in the show notes for a special offer for Slick Talk listeners. And now we're back to the episode. Thanks for tuning in. How do you think, because I know you've been doing this for quite a while. You guys got to celebrate your 25-year anniversary with Moving Mountains.
Yeah.
It's a big milestone. I was just celebrating with...
Been doing it forever.
I was going to say, been doing it for a very long time. And I was also talking to Dennis from Cassiola. They just celebrated their 10-year anniversary. So there's companies now that have been doing it for a while. They're earning these milestones. It's really exciting. And the standardized piece is super important, right? Like you said, the hotel part. Yeah. I'm curious your perspective with the industry being, every home is different. They're not built like the hotels are. Hotels are pretty copy and paste in some shape or form, because especially they're intendedly built for this. And so getting past that, like every home is unique. Every operator now is unique. Every market is different, especially if you're spread out and not condensed in one space. How do you think from a standardized piece that it can be adopted with the individuality of Airbnb hosts, traditional managers, hybrid, I would call multifamily type operators, whether urban, but they also maybe have penthouses and other kind of inventory?
Well, I think you have to embrace the diversity of what we consider, supply, what the supply is. It's going to come in all shapes and sizes. But I think the approach is to have some standardized approaches to at least minimum safety requirements, minimum life safety standards. Justin Ford does an incredible job of telling the story, and I think people are catching on. But I think many more of us could be doing more. Each time he comes and meets with our staff, everyone's realizing that there's still more that could be done. Yeah. And I think we're operating at a pretty high level, but we are still realizing that, there are gaps, and that's exposure at the end of the day. If you have somebody injured or worse in one of your homes, it's going to be devastating to your business. So I don't want to be in that kind of situation. And InHaven's approach is, what do we need? What are the expectations for the kitchen, the bathroom, the bedroom? There are elements to each part of the vacation rental experience that you can, if you're operating at the highest level, then you should have this, this, and this. If you're operating in the next tier down, if we label that in some way that, well, this home is at this level, it's a B or a C or whatever we decide to call those different tiers, you're setting expectations with the guest. But for the guest who's looking for, I want the house that has everything, then for them to be able to say with reliability that I know I can go into this house, I can entertain with my family and my friends, that I can, that I'm going to have everything I need in the way of appliances, enough glasses, plates. These are the basics, but it's incredible that people are still skimping on some of that stuff. I think it's an educational process to get owners to understand that in the big scheme of things, it's, don't trip over your shoelaces just to save a few bucks. Mm-hmm. When in fact you're going to get judged by the guest who maybe never wants to come back because your knives weren't sharp, because you didn't have enough plates or glasses, that you had a mishmash of, it just looks disjointed. It doesn't feel like the experience that the guest is expecting. Yeah. So, all of this is shaping the industry to a more professional standard, which as much as we try to deny we're not like hotels, we kind of need to adopt some of the strategies that they've done because it's been so effective. Well,
you were saying earlier too, we're very reactive as an industry right now, especially with regulation. Yeah. I would love to know, because my kind of comment earlier, I definitely realized I went off path when I started saying this, but you've been doing this for 25 years, over 25 years. These other companies have been doing it for a while. And it's, this, what am I trying to say? In the sense of,
It's been an evolution,
Well, it's a grind. Like people, like it's a really hard business in the sense of 24-hour service. You told me some stuff from the early days, right? It's constant go. So how can you be proactive when you're so busy?
Okay. Well, I'd say, that's the benefit of coming to a conference is most of us are not sitting here trying to run our businesses from Florida right now.
Yeah.
We're actually stopping and thinking critically about some element of our business, whether we need to do our finances better, whether we need to track better KPIs that can give us better information for decision making, whether the standards are meeting the expectations of the marketplace. You get a chance to work on your business as opposed to working in your business. It's kind of a cliche, but that's the way of being proactive is to start taking steps of you can't fix things when you're living in the day to day. You have to take a more strategic view, which ultimately becomes more proactive. You're planning and preparing, and that is, I'll make a comparison. For years, I was an endurance mountain bike racer. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I love about it, because I was kind of on the older side when I got into it, I started racing in my 30s. And what you realize after you've been doing it for a while is, actually, I'll tell you that critically, I turned from 39 to 40. And the beauty of the mountain bike racing is what counts as your age at the end of the year. So when I raced, when I was 39, I turned 40 in the middle of the summer. So for the first half of the year, I'm a 39-year-old racing against a bunch of guys that are in their 40s, and that's so old. Mm-hmm. Man, I got my ass handed to me. And what I realized is these guys are just so much smarter than me. Because mountain bike racing, especially endurance racing, is not about how hard you want to push the pedals. Yeah. It's actually about how well you manage yourself. So are you drinking enough? Are you eating enough? In a 50-mile or 100-mile bike race, you actually have to fuel continuously. You cannot catch up. If you get behind in your hydration, you cannot catch up. So everything about that is about, on race day, is about having a plan and executing your plan. Yeah. Everything you do in the 6 to 12 months of preparation that goes into preparing for an event like that is preparation for executing the race day plan. Well, you can take a lot of that approach and apply it to a business as prepare and execute. Yeah. Right? Don't execute and then try and execute better and then try and execute better, because you're going to find yourself going backwards. That's not, on race day, you don't wake up and say, damn, I should have trained more. Game over. If you didn't train for the last 6 months, then you're not going to have a good race day. Yeah. So business is much the same. What you learn and train your staff to do now is what's going to help you execute on every single guest day. And you have to have that mindset of continuous improvement. I'm always going to be able to do something better. I'm always going to look back and learn and look forward and execute better the next time. So the benefit of us having done it for 25 years is we've made a heck of a lot of mistakes. Yeah. The trick is we haven't made too many of them more than once. Yeah. I'd like to think that we're getting better and better because we make fewer and fewer mistakes. Yeah. And the things that we improve in the business on a year-by-year basis are now smaller and smaller adjustments. So it's a beautiful thing when you find a way to get a 1% improvement to your bottom line, especially if you've grown a larger business. 1% more profitability. We challenged our team. I used the phrase that I plucked from Unreasonable Hospitality about raindrops make oceans. Yeah. Well, we had another version of that last year, which was about the challenge of incremental gains. So finding a 1% gain in every corner of the business can lead to a massive improvement in performance. And we have had a significant improvement in our business performance over the last 12 months because we went out looking in every corner of our business for, what can we do better, a little better on housekeeping fees in terms of managing and tracking and creating an efficiency. Where could we find an efficiency in inspection time? Or what's a more optimal way to operate our shuttles? Maybe we were able to make a savings in fuel. We had a massive savings on laundry just by finding a new laundry provider. and providing a commercial laundry service for the first time, centralized between our 3 locations, our 3 operating bases. May sound simple, but previously we had different providers in each market, and that was easy because the sheets and towels were just going a short distance to that person, but we were paying premium for working with someone who's actually got a facility in a mountain town, one of the most expensive places that you can operate a business. So, the lesson learned was that we needed to find that efficiency. And even though it's crazy that we have trucks running in and out from all these different locations, the net result to the bottom line was a significant improvement. We made that incremental gain, and that, along with a number of other things, has really improved our business. So,
I love it. And victory loves preparation. It's one of my favorite lines.
There you go.
Not from that book, but from a movie, actually.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Robin, I hate to cut us off early.
But I'm sure you have a line of people to talk to here.
I'm super thankful for you to take the time.
Yeah, of course.
Listeners, obviously, Robin is no stranger to the podcast. So follow Robin Craigen, Moving Mountains, all the things you guys are doing. I love your LinkedIn posts. They're actually my favorite whenever I see them. So LinkedIn's a great spot to follow him. And of course, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Wil Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.